2-1. And Kolento is currently down in the series, having lost 2 games in a row with his Shutterwalk combo shaman, or traditional Shutterwalk shaman with Grumble, the World Shaker, and then, of course, Life Drinker and Serenite Chain Gang to pair with Shutterwalk.
And this is, I would imagine, one of the matchups that he is looking to face. It's a deck that usually will go pretty late into the late game with Pokrovac Druid, and that you're trying to draw through your entire deck, get to that super late stage, and then just steal your opponent's deck. Which, while, as you said, the Shutterwalk Shaman does have a kind of unbeatable late game if it gets there, if they can't draw their Shutterwalk because their opponent has stolen it from them, it kind of does a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, keep in mind that Azalina Soul Thief's interaction has changed since we last talked to you guys in the playoffs. Not only is it really powerful to, having these late game scenarios with King Togwaggle, but it also keeps the separate buffs and mana cost changes compared to before. So in the past, if you played Azalina Soul Thief against a Shutterwalk Shaman, and they had a handful of Shutterwalks, you would get 9 mana cost Shutterwalks back. But in this case, when they get reduced to 1 mana thanks to Grumble's Battle Cry effect of reducing it to 1 and bouncing it back to your hand, you'll also keep that as well. So you have some pretty interesting shenanigans where Azalina is a very viable late game tech, no longer just kind of a meme combo that a lot of people have delegated it to in the very beginning when it was first released.
And Azalina is just one of my absolute favorite cards of this meta because it always makes for such intensely complicated games where only players who know the matchups inside and out can consistently come out on top. But like you said, with the Shutterwalk pool of battle cries you get in there, there's not a whole lot that Druid has to activate that consistent Shutterwalk battle cry outside of Togwaggle and Azalina, which could get a little bit silly later on with a lot of deck swapping.
And part of the power of Togwaggle Druid 2 is the addition of the new card Dream Petal Florist. This is a 7-mana 4/4 that allows you to discount. Hey, there you go, it's drawn to the hand. That reduces the cost of a random minion in your hand by 7. And ideally you hit things like King Togwaggle. Azalina, of course, is also great too. And that's what you're less dependent on Twig of the World Tree, which is kind of such an important linchpin of so many combo Druid decks. But now you don't need it. It's a luxury item if you're able to combo both.
And I think there was, maybe some consideration to not bringing Twig at all, because Dream Petal is so powerful with this deck. Like you said, activating that combo so consistently, even when weapon removal is there. But considering how little weapon removal there is in this playoffs comparative to the last one, Twig does feel like a pretty good choice. And for Kolento, with no weapon destruction available quite yet, with only the 1 copy of Gluttonous Ooze obviously knocking about in his deck, Pokrovac is looking like he might be able to make some pretty disgusting swing turns later on.
Yeah, so in your opinion, Derek, when you're playing Togwaggle Druid against a deck that's so predicated upon 1 or 2 cards like Shutterwalk or Grumble, why are we not taking our time, or why are we taking our time rather, instead of just rushing out the floors to get this combo off with King Togwaggle and Azalina?
Well, for the moment for Pokrovac, you need to be thinking about what you're actually giving your opponent, because just stealing your opponent's deck isn't always good enough. You have to be stealing the better deck. Which means usually you want to have drawn through your whole deck so there's nothing left in it. But like you said, in a matchup like this where you can just rush it out, we very possibly will see a very early King Togwaggle if he senses that one of those key combo pieces isn't there. Because ironically enough, with Togwaggle Druid being one of the best decks in Hearthstone, one of its greatest strengths is the deck doesn't do very much at all without that ultimate combo at the end. So giving your opponent a bunch of card draw, maybe some armor gain, if they're going into fatigue and they can't pressure you, going for an early Togwaggle with the Soul Thief here, or maybe double naturalize if that can come down early, so they just don't get the King's Ransom at all. A lot of options here for Pokrovac to disrupt his opponent's OTK.
Kolento playing Electra Storm Surge, the new legendary shaman scientist. And he's going to try and cast 2 copies of Farsight to attempt to grab some of his most important cards. The only problem is when your opponent's playing the floors, you almost certainly know that they have a very valuable combo piece, either King Togwaggle or Azalina Soul Thief. And I think if you're Kolento, you're very afraid of being in this scenario right now. However, we have seen the Shutterwalk Shamans able to win despite not having Shutterwalk himself by having the ability to tempo out the board. That being said, Druid is one of the best classes at dealing with set tempo. And then you have to account for the fact that now if Pokrovac copies things like Hagatha, has even more range and ability to go late in the game.
We are seeing now that ultimate combo, which usually comes down on like turn 15, 16, once the whole deck has been drawn. Pokrovac just saying right now, if you don't have every combo piece in hand, you're just not going to be winning this game.
Well, there is also a corner case scenario where you can try and swap decks for one turn and then draw as many cards as possible.
Also worth
So you have, Acolyte in hand. The only problem is that it does require some elaborate setup, and then you have to also account for the fact that your opponent has, 13 power on board right now. So you have to be very careful to just not die in case your opponent, say, draws branching paths, if they swap decks back, for example.
But one of the things that makes Togwaggle so viable as a combo deck is that when you go for the combo, you develop a decent board at the same time. It's not like you're going to be overwhelmed on the following turn. Getting 8-8 worth of stats is not to be sniffed at all.
Really cute combo here from Kolento to Electro Storm Surge again with Zol the Gorgon. This has a chance of clearing the entire board.
And I think he's realizing now Zola can't be saved to bounce Shuttlewalks back to hand because I think he realizes it's just never going to happen here. He has to try and, like you said, tempo out a board. Maybe he can get an Arcane Tyrant from his opponent's deck.
Now that I think about it, it feels like Pokrovac has every combo Shuttlewalk in the deck still. He has the Lightbringer hasn't been played.
Chain Gang.
Chain Gang hasn't played. Grumble hasn't been drawn either. So it feels like Pokrovac now has the inevitability. He's just playing Shuttlewalk Shaman himself.
Pretty much. And for Kolento, if he can draw a Nourish from the deck now, he could go for King's Ransom Nourish to try and maybe draw a key combo piece back from his opponent so that the Shuttlewalk combo isn't there. Because for Kolento, I guess if neither player has the ultimate Shuttlewalk win condition, it gives him more of a chance.
How about Hagatha? Is there like a series and string of Shaman cards that can either, disrupt the game plan or maybe come up with the game plan himself? We're looking at things like, obviously the Spellstone on a big minion can be swinging, but there is a new legendary spell also called the Stormbringer, which transforms your entire board into legendary minions. And, from there, that means there's just a lot of possibilities of crazy combos that we're not thinking about. There's always like one legendary that we don't account for that can do insane stuff.
And also, there's a lot of other new spells. I think Eureka, if that was to be found, maybe you could just tempo out one of your big minions then. Just get anything onto the board. But I guess for Pokrovac, in terms of spells, he really mainly, outside of anything flashy, is just looking for a way to delay the game.
Right.
As long as he doesn't lose any of those combo pieces, Pokrovac will just be winning.
Yep, exactly. The roles have reversed, and now he has the inevitability. And a lot of times people saved King Togwaggle plus Azling a Soul Thief for the late stages for fatigue damage, right? Yep. You deck out yourself, you draw an insane amount with Nourish, Ultimate Infestation, Branching Paths, etc. And then you swap a 0-card deck to your opponent. You don't need to do that. You can just simply take away their win condition. And now Kolento's in a tough position where he has to figure out a way to win, if he can.
He is given the liberty, I suppose, however, of just not having to switch the decks back because he's been given a decent deck. It's not especially powerful, but there's still a Malfurion and Death Knight in there. He can start to tempo out a board, perhaps, and there's the Spellstone that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Pokrovac going to be looking just to try and, like you said, win through board for the moment.
Yeah, and he's also taking extra precautions in case his opponent tries to do something very cute or cheeky, as you would say.
I would
and
indeed.
Overdraw, right? If you Volcano this Acolyte and make him overdraw Shuttlewalk, then all of a sudden you have a chance to win this game.
But by that metric, Pokrovac knows that there is no Volcano in hand. He has
that's
perfect knowledge of every Shaman card that his opponent has. I suppose Hagatha could.
It would have to be like, Swipe plus a couple of other small procs.
Pretty nutty stuff,
but you are correct in that assumption.
Very nice play from Kolento as well. Worth pointing out that he saved the excess mana from the Wild Growth to potentially go King's Ransom and then draw another card from his opponent's deck for 0 mana just to try and disrupt that combo once again.
That is true.
Let the pain speak to me.
Ooh, perhaps he can recraft his own game plan. Oh, he still hasn't played the Shen Chain Gang or a Life Drinker though.
So Shuttlewalk doesn't really do anything.
Yeah. He does have 2 copies of both in his deck, which is now Pokrovac's deck. Nothing too amazing here. It looks like he just values the tempo given from Spiteful Summoner, but there's a lot of weak spells in the Druid deck.
It's pretty much only Ultimate Infestation, maybe a Plague that you're looking for to have much of an impact at all.
That's right. Pokrovac just going back onto the grind, just trying to take his time, stay alive.
Yeah. And as bad as this may look for Kolento right now, it's very possibly even worse than it may first seem. Because inevitability is on Pokrovac's side right now.
So this is interesting. Pokrovac left up the opponent's Acolyte, while Kolento has the ability to swap decks and maybe draw cards.
That's true.
So, you know, instead of, like, say, hexing his opponent's Acolyte and denying card draw, he's given some semblance of a possibility from Kolento to draw multiple cards, but Kolento does not have, at least from what we see, ways to damage his own Acolyte easily.
Yeah, there's no Moonfires in the Druid deck because it's not Malagos.
Right.
Volcano, you're pretty sure isn't there.
But there are things like Wrath, you know, and Spellstone. Kolento's gonna get an Oaken summons, so that ends up being a decent outcome given what we know is in the deck. Oh, Beacon!
Oh, that's pretty sick.
Oh man, but the thing is, he doesn't have enough mana to do like King's Ransom anymore.
And his opponent surely will be thinking that, you know, Pokrovac will be starting to realize, I think, that the main way he wins, given he's so far ahead on board and has inevitability on his side, is that he might lose a combo piece.
Right, and of course, kind of a very sick, ironic twist of fate here for Kolento is that his opponent has stolen his deck, which he played Keleseth. So, you know, all those buffs make things like Lightning Storm and Beakered Lightning a lot worse. This should be a clear board. Kolento should be winning on tempo, hypothetically, if he didn't play that Keleseth.
Yeah. And the more cards Pokrovac draws for his opponent, I would imagine almost the happier he is, because there's really not all too much that Kolento can do with that deck outside of the Togwaggle OTK to draw your opponent's entire deck. None of the cards really do anything. You can't develop a wide board unless your opponent goes wide first so that you can go Spreading Plague. Ultimate Infestation is unplayable because there's so many cards that would be overdrawn.
Speaking of being overdrawn, Kolento has double naturalized. That is one last opportunity, I think.
Oh, you draw them 4 cards closer to their combo to burn 1.
I don't know how confident I feel about that.
It doesn't feel great.
Oh, what we could do is you could swap decks and then naturalize. No, that doesn't really do much.
Yeah, because then they
I'm trying to think of like creative ways to get out of this position.
You've got to think really weird here. This is a very topsy-turvy kind of game.
All that overload before getting the Spellstone. Is there a way for Kolento to get out of this position? It's looking pretty dire with every passing turn now that the decks have been swapped for some time.
Yeah, he just needs to dominate the board, basically, I think. There's one chance.
There's not that many cards remaining, actually, for Pokrovac's side, so there's a decent chance that something happens here. There's only, what, like, less than 5 cards remaining here?
It's almost out of cards. Oh, wow!
Oh
that
my
is
goodness!
Insane.
And
the
the
two
last
naturalizes.
card
It's Grumble. Grumble and Shudderwock, bottom 2 cards.
So if Pokrovac didn't, if he was a little bit deeper in the deck, he would have burned Shudderwock and Grumble.
That's true.
That would have been super nuts.
So, I mean...
But, you know, interesting to think about, too, which is, like, if Kolento swapped decks at any point and drawn, he wouldn't have gotten any deeper. But, like, it's so interesting to think that King's Ransom is still, like...
Yes,
you know,
it's still messing with all the maths of both of these players. No Shudderwock offered off for the Blazing Invocation, much to Pokrovac's chagrin, I'm sure.
And one thing also to consider is that Kolento is actually not that... You know, like, before, one of the problems with Togwaggle Drew is that so much of the deck cycles, and you keep drawing or recruiting. But Pokrovac's going to be hitting fatigue first.
Yes. Which Kolento has been playing for. You know, he hasn't been drawing too many cards. Didn't try and tempo out that Ultimate Infestation as quick as possible, because he's now realized his one chance was to stop that combo from happening, be it through King's Ransom into Nourish to draw cards from his opponent's deck, or double naturalize like we saw here, which in some cruel twist of fate, the stolen Shuttlewalk for Pokrovac hasn't worked, but Stormbringer could maybe do something with Spellstone into Stormbringer.
So this is one instance where having that King's Ransom is a very interesting card because he could have swapped decks, but then Pokrovac would be like, well, I'll let you stay on fatigue. So this is a couple of dead cards here in Kolento's hand. But the Stormbringer does provide a very interesting scenario. The only thing is that I don't think Kolento has any other minions. He played his Oaken Summons.
No Giggling Inventors in the deck at all. Oh, yeah.
I don't think he has a single way to generate a spell from Hagatha.
I think you're right. Both Tyrants, both Golems. There are literally no more minions in the deck.
Yeah, so I think Pokrovac gets there just because he has minions and Kolento doesn't. In fact, Kolento just has dead cards. And this Windspeaker pickup from Pokrovac was also pretty heads up because now he can press in and just close the gap of fatigue.
And this is what I was saying about the Togwaggle Druid. Even though it is one of the best decks in Hearthstone, the deck itself is just one of the worst decks in Hearthstone. It doesn't do anything.
Pokrovac making space, accounting for the fact that he's going to gain a spell and bounce the minions back. And this just shows you how crucial even having Grumble is. If Kolento had Grumble and was able to flip it, Nourish, it just doesn't do anything.
Pokrovac just knows he's safe here. No naturalizes, only the one-off Hex that can deal with it. And even then, you go for another Life Drinker.
I think Kolento's just waiting to find out what the last card is. Spreading Plague, perhaps? Well, Pokrovac's not exactly picking up great cards here.
He's really looking for Lava Burst, Stormbringer.
He's also kind of weak on actual... Oh, well, I forgot about this card. Oh, wow.
That is so filthy.
Spellstone.
So Kolento has to go Nourish to draw for Spreading Plague with the Innovate. If there's even a Plague left in the deck, because I'm thinking Azalina might have destroyed it when Pokrovac went to copy his opponent's cards.
Yeah.
It's his only shot though, because these Life Drinkers are just going to kill him.
No, he has Malfurion. That would have been a fantastic card. Kolento concedes, and what a back and forth game. Where in the end, the Togwaggle